So I would like everybody to officially welcome to the webinar lessons from 18 months of Building Efficiency Accelerator Engagement in Mexico City, hosted by Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency in collaboration with World Resource Institute. This webinar is organized under the umbrella of Building Efficiency Accelerator. We're pleased that 73 of participants have registered for this webinar, so everybody welcome. My name is Aristidis Tsakiris and I'm Research Assistant at Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency. Copenhagen Center conducts research and advisory activities in the field of energy efficiency and serves as Energy Efficiency Hub for Sustainable Energy for All initiative. We also support Building Efficiency Accelerator with hosting different webinars from various partners. Today's agenda will start with an introduction by Eric, then Julia will present an overview of Building Efficiency Accelerator process in Mexico City. Itzel will tell us about the perspective from Mexico City, and Octavio will present the perspective from the private sector. We will conclude with a session with questions and answers where we can discuss what we have heard today and address any questions from you. One more thing to mention is that we are recording this webinar and probably will be available on Pagecamp, but on C2E, on Copenhagen Center's knowledge management platform, we have many other webinars and resources on energy efficiency in building and other sectors. So if you're interested, you're welcome to follow the link and find out more. Now I would like to hand over again to Eric.
Hi, Aris. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I am sharing my screen now. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. I'm very glad you could join this webinar. I'm excited to be a part of this myself to share the experience of the Building Efficiency Accelerator in Mexico City, which is one of the cities that has been a partner to the accelerator the longest, and to be able to share some lessons from Mexico City that may be relevant to other Building Efficiency Accelerator partner cities and organizational partners around the world. So as Aris introduced, here are the speakers. Just a little bit more about each of us. So I'm Eric Mackres with the World Resources Institute. I'm a manager with our Building Efficiency Initiative, and I'm based in Washington, D.C. Been working closely with the team in Mexico as they began this work on the Building Efficiency Accelerator, and Julia's team based there. So Julia Martínez is the Director of Environmental Economics and Climate Change with WRI Mexico, which has newly joined the family of, formally joined the family of WRI organizations around the world and used to be known as CTS Embark Mexico. Julia has been leading Mexico, the partnership with Mexico City through the Building Efficiency Accelerator from WRI with her team there. Itzel from the Environment Ministry of Mexico City. She's the program manager on climate change, adaptation, and resilience. She's been one of our core staff partners within the Mexico City government on identifying and implementing the actions that are core to Mexico City's agenda related to building efficiency. She'll share more about how it connects with the city's other priorities and leadership. And finally, Octavio García from ALENER. He's the president of ALENER, which is the Alliance for Energy Efficiency in English. It's a public-private partnership in Mexico that focuses on energy efficiency in buildings. He'll share the experience of the private sector and how the private sector has been engaged in the BEA process in Mexico City. And then finally, we will open it up for a discussion. I'm really excited to hear from the other partners and partner cities on the webinar about questions you have about the Mexico City experience, ideas you have from your experience that may be relevant to Mexico City. If you have questions as we're going through, you can use the chat function in the webinar, but what we'll do at the end is we will open it up for questions and ask you to use the raise hand feature to ask your questions, and hopefully we can unmute you and have you ask your question directly to the presenters. So just a little bit of way of high-level background. Many of you know this, but just as a quick refresher, the Sustainable Energy for All is focused around one overarching goal, which is this idea of achieving sustainable energy for all by 2030. And the definition of that consists of 3 different objectives: ensuring universal energy access, doubling the global rate of improvement in energy efficiency, and then doubling the share of renewable energy in the global energy mix. So September 2014 was an important time, particularly for the energy efficiency element of the Sustainable Energy for All goal. Sustainable Energy for All had existed since 2011, but at the Climate Summit in 2014 in New York City, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon announced the formation of the Global Energy Efficiency Accelerator platform. And that is what C2E2 convenes and what the Building Efficiency Accelerator is a part of. And this is one of the primary implementing methods for achieving this goal related to improving energy efficiency globally. So at that same summit, Mexico City was one of the first cities to join the Building Efficiency Accelerator. Milwaukee was one of our other first cities to join. Mexico City at that summit identified that yes, building efficiency is closely related to its goals for improving the city and addressing climate change, among other things, and identified 2 things that it wanted to do. So many of you are familiar with this now, the 3 commitments that every city makes when joining the accelerator: to identify and implement a policy, project, and a method for tracking progress. Well, at the Climate Summit and soon after, Mexico City and the Environment Secretary from Mexico City identified building energy code implementation and retrofit of municipal buildings in Mexico City as the 2 priority projects and policies that the city wanted to pursue under the Building Efficiency Accelerator. And from there, that was the beginning of a great partnership, which we'll be able to describe in more detail the path after that. Just in a very high level, many of you are also familiar with this process that we have of working with cities under the Building Efficiency Accelerator from commitment through assessment, development, implementation, and improvement. Well, in Mexico City, that progress looks like this. So from September in 2014 was that commitment I just mentioned. There was a kickoff workshop with establishing the vision and the partnership more broadly with the private sector and the public sector in March, developing a work plan in 2015, and then in 2016 the work really got going, and 2 of our initial successes here are listed around adopting an energy code and the public building audits beginning for those two commitments, the policy and project commitments. So Julio will talk about this in more detail, but just wanted to give you a sense of how this fits in with the process that we've developed for the accelerator, and that many of the other cities are currently at various stages in pursuing. And then finally, before I hand it over to Julia to go into more detail on the Mexico City case, I also wanted to acknowledge that this is also the release of a new feature on Basecamp. We have developed a new folder that's called the City Knowledge Share and Example Documents folder. This is intended to be a space in which cities to the accelerator can share key pieces of information and documentation of their process. So agendas from key meetings, technical documents that were developed, work plans that they develop, and as an opportunity to share information between cities, and also to share templates that may be useful for other cities to replicate. So right now this just has resources for Mexico City. Let me show you what those are. First of all, there's a timeline that goes into the details of the different key steps and events along the Mexico City process. And then additionally, it has 3 folders that are related to those different, those 5 steps. We've combined some of those steps in these folders, but from the commitment through assessment and development and implementation improvement steps, we've organized the resources to make it a little bit easier to sort through and to find what you're looking for. And finally, as I mentioned, we want other cities to use this folder as well. So we welcome you to upload your documents into these 3 folders that are organized by the steps. And this document, this final one I've highlighted to the far left, shows how to use this folder, in particular around the kind of naming convention we're suggesting so that it's easier to find documents that people are looking for. So know that these are all there now, and we want to encourage you to use these as well. The team in WRI would be happy to work with you to get your documents uploaded as appropriately, but you're also welcome to upload them directly yourself. And let us know your feedback if this is a useful tool. So with that, I want to just leave it with some key questions about what we want to talk about today and hear from our panelists. So the big question is what happened in Mexico City with the Building Efficiency Accelerator, and why did it happen the way that it did in terms of the commitments, the goals that were set, the achievements that have happened, and even the barriers. And I think those are 2 of the key things we want to dig into more deeply. What was challenging in this process, and how were those barriers overcome? And then we've had some great successes in Mexico City as well. Why were we able to be successful? What were the key ingredients? Who were the key players who were involved? What was the key technical or policy knowledge that was needed? And then finally, what are the lessons specifically for Mexico City that are relevant to other BEA cities? Hope we can get into that in some detail. And then finally, we'd love to hear from other cities and partners on the line about what lessons or resources you have that may be relevant to the next steps in the process in the Mexico City Building Efficiency Accelerator. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Julia and allow her to present her slides. Julia, so I'm now handing presenter rights over to you. And welcome, Julia.
Thank you very much, Eric, for the introduction. On behalf of Adriana Lobo, the director of WRI Mexico, we want to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our colleagues of the Building Efficiency Accelerator Network. For me, it's an honor to be here with you and to share the experience of the BEA process in Mexico City. I'll talk about the commitment, the assessment, the development, the improvement, and the implementation of this initiative. As Eric mentioned, it all started on September 23rd, 2014, where the Mexico City government accepted the challenge of the BEA in United Nations to work on improving building efficiency at, as I mentioned, at the UN Climate Summit in September 2014. And then WRI Mexico by then didn't have developed work on energy efficiency in buildings. WRI Mexico was very strong on the transport sector and started in cities, the cities work. However, it was the first time we started working on energy efficiency. I want to thank Jennifer Lakey for all the support that gave to the WRI Mexico for this initiative to be developed, also to Eric Mackres and his team. So in March 19, we started working with Mexico City. The Minister, Tania Mueller, allowed us to have a workshop on Chapultepec Park, that is a very nice park. And we started working with a workshop with more than 100 participants. It's the first time that we got together, the private sector, the federal government, the Mexico City government, some other governments around Mexico City. So they were very excited to be in a meeting talking about energy efficiency. It was the first time that all the stakeholders were together for implementing actions. So by then, in September 2014, we had the commitment for Mexico City to implement a building energy code and to retrofit public buildings. We can see there Tania Mueller is the Minister of Environment of Mexico City that launched the workshop in March 2015. As I mentioned, with government, business, finance, and civil society and consulting private companies. And then an action plan on the way in 2016. We had 4 working groups chaired by Mexico City government staff and Sustainable Energy for All partners with the support of WRI and by then CTS and BARC. And we had technical workshops on building retrofits and finance. We had recommendations on actions by government and stakeholders delivered in October, and actions were announced at COP21 in December last year. We can see there Major Mancera talking about the Building Efficiency Accelerator and the commitments that the city had under this as the BEA. The program implementation phase went from January 2016 to October of this year, and in June, new energy code was announced. This is very important for us because under Working Group 1, we developed with funds from the with funds from the UK, from the Prosperity Fund and CACEDI, we developed the first energy conservation code for Mexico. And then with funds from the Danish Energy Agency, we developed the complementary norm for architectonic projects for that regulation in Mexico City. So this is very important. The regulation for Mexico City was published this year, and the complementary technical norm that is based on the code that we developed has all the actual normativity for Mexico. We have now another project with UK funds for adapting and adopting this code in 2 municipalities of Mexico, Guadalajara and Mérida. On June 5, 2015, we had working groups meetings, an advisory group meeting. We had an advisor group with the Ministry of Energy, with ALENER, with the Mexico City government. On August 6, we had a finance and retrofit working groups, stakeholders, an internal meeting hosted by Tania Mueller, the Mexico City Secretariat. And then regarding development, on September 9, a specific recommendation for the working groups were given, and then the working groups met to discuss and finalize the recommendation to the government. And in October 15 last year, Mexico City Minister of Environment discussed this recommendation, and in November at the COP21 in Paris, the first ever building day at the COP21 at the new Global Alliance for Building and Construction was established. And then it was then when Major Mancera announced the plan for energy code implementation in Mexico City and stressed on the importance of buildings. Now, implementation this year is very important because the working groups have met every 3 months to advance in this matter. And on March, I mentioned the energy conservation calls for Mexico was presented and had the support of the Ministry of Energy and support from the CONUE, and formally we hope that in October this year formally we will start the procurement and audit process for 4 buildings in Mexico City. The Minister Tania Muller identified 4 buildings that are going to be audited this year. You can see there the first energy conservation code in Mexico City. And we have in the improvement coming soon. We will have the results of the energy audits of the 4 buildings at the beginning of the next month, and we will be able to share with you the results. So thanks to the Building Efficiency Accelerator, we really improved energy efficiency in Mexico through the energy code and through the approval of the new reglamento for Mexico City. Thank you very much for listening.
All right, and so up next is Itzel to talk about the Mexico City government perspective. You can share your screen again and share Itzel's presentation when you're ready.
Well, thank you, Eric, and thanks you, Julia, and well, thank you all, the participants. My name is Itzel Alcerreca, and I'm from Mexico City government, and I'm going to talk a little bit on our perspective on Mexico City and how we have been improving and how we have been living the process. As you have seen, with as we have been working with WRI and CTS Embark, and well, the BEA really strong. It has been well, I think. Yes, just to show you a little bit of what I'm going to talk about, it's on our reflections on how the BEA process, it has been helping us on our goals on climate change and other high-level goals. And also, well, it has been a process that we have been improving a little bit our process. So, well, let's talk about a little bit on the climate change policy evolution on Mexico City. We started on 2000, and we have been evolving all these climate change policy into regulations, climate change local laws. Actually, we have 2 programs, 2 climate action programs. We have a resilience strategy now, and also we now have a climate change environmental fund. So you can see it has been 16 years on an evolution on climate change policy. For a local government and a Mexico City government, it's really, really impressive how we have been evolving. But also, we have not only a 2020 vision, we have also, with the help of WRI, on 2025 vision on climate change that it was presented by Mayor Mancera in last COP in December in France. So, I don't want to give you a lecture on Mexico City, but well, just to give you a perspective on climate action that we have a local strategy that is 2014-2020, and also we have a program that it has been helping us not only with the diagnostics, we have also actions that we're going to put in implementation into 2020 year. So, what are our goals? On mitigation, we have 10 million tons of CO2 accumulated by 2020. And adaptation, our goal is to reduce climate change risk. And in 5.6 million inhabitants identified in vulnerable situation to climate change, and of course build resilience in this population. And the main components, well, we have 3 main components. It's mitigation, adaptation, and education and communication, and they have a structure, and here's why we are really glad to participate with the BEA process, because one of the structure, it's energy efficiency and renewable energy. So far the climate action program has 109 actions, but this specific axis that it's energy efficiency and renewable energy, it has a lot of actions that we are improving, and we need to also have synergic process into all these structure. But well, this has been our goals and our high-level goals. But how the process has been helpful for us. So there are ways, of course, if we are the first involved in this process, of course there are ways to improve the process, and there are pieces that have been working really well. So I'm going to present how we have been involving in this process. So we are really committed into the C4O goals, and of course we want to establish Mexico and Mexico City as leaders in these goals. And we, as Julia mentioned before, well, we have been involved in this. Mayor Mancera has been committed on this process as well, and the policies and projects for the buildings, of course, it's really aligned with our program. Well, of course, to get development on the market, to get the leadership and the regulation and measurement, it's part of our ideas and the implementation actions that we will have. And well, talking about the building energy efficiency actions that we have, just to give you a little bit on the scope that we have, it's, well, we have systems, modification, and institutional buildings energy consumption habits that it has been, well, a little bit on estimation on the US dollars that we have on this cost. Also, we have water saving program in public schools, buildings, and rainwater capture. That is more or less the number that we have. Julia was mentioning the building codes, and yes, we are glad that we have our reformation on this, or modification on this building code, and now it's including sustainability criteria. That it's really important, energy efficiency, of course, and well, let's talk about renewable energy use in public hospitals. It's really we had a pilot project, and I'm going to show you a little bit of the data and how all this cost. Sometimes it's on our own budget. So that's part of the process that we are learning, and with the BEA we are well, improving our methodologies and our tracking system as well. Also, well, to develop and publish the sustainable audit program, and to encourage energy efficiency improvement in the service sector and low carbon schools. These are part of several actions that we are taking into action again. And well, just to give you a little bit of these actions that I was presenting. The sustainable housing program, for example, now they have solar water heating systems, and so far I think it's 15,000 existing houses, and this is the mitigation that they have been registered, and the renewable program that well, as Julia was mentioning, solar water heater mandatory rule, and this modification on the code, it has been helping us to get these photovoltaic and of course solar water heaters into the public buildings, into existing houses. This is part of more or less of the action that we have. And also, let's talk about another system that is really important for us, talking about environmental administration. We call it SAA in Spanish for the acronym. And so far, we have 2,000 buildings in Mexico City, and they are taking step by step 50 registered institutions, 64 buildings from those 2,000. So of course we are having a long process, but it's an amazing work that they are doing, because they are having energy, solid waste, water, and green procurement diagnostics. So far it's 150 diagnostics on this on these themes. And the importance, it's not only to raise awareness, it's also to get the numbers and to show how they are going to reduce all these generation and CO2 emissions, how we can get, for example, solid waste. 33% of the institutions have a management plan. For some cities, maybe this is normal, but for us, to get a radical and change of paradigm sometimes in the public administration. And talking about energy, so far, well, 100 it's 11 efficient institutions. So far they have these buildings, and they have identified the total consumption and also the savings that they have been done in the kilowatt hour. So these are the numbers, so I don't want to get a lot, but to show you that they are measuring some of the reduced tons of CO2. They are raising awareness on this and how they can be involved in a small action in every building. So they are going to sum up and add more of our goals that, or to our goal that we have in Mexico City. And talking about case studies, well, in the BEA process, we have been helping as an assessment committee and also taking advantage that we have a lot of institutional framework. So we have been working in the BEA process as part of the government, but also with the liaison of the NGOs, private sector, and well, talking just of 2 case studies and this certification of the Mayor's Mancera building, that is Palacio Virreinal, and just to give you the idea of how the generation is accounted, that it's 70 kilos of daily waste generation, and also how we can forecast their annual reduction. And so far, well, also we have another system, a photovoltaic system, that it has been already installed in a pediatric hospital, and so far they have our pilot project. It's on 32 panels, photovoltaic panels, and they have been reduced 32 tons of CO2. Just to give you the idea, they have annual savings, and it's, well, this is part of our next challenge, to install solar heaters in public hospitals. It's 19 hospitals so far, and well, we want to have all the public hospitals in the Mexico City with these renewable energy actions. And later on, well, Julia was mentioning that with our own budget, it's our own funds. With these pilot projects, we are now developing these 4 building efficiency audit investment grade. We're having these 4 buildings, and we are going to have these audits, so we can check if we can have well, retrofit, and we can have, of course, the implementation actions for the next year. So the BEA process has helped us to identify this process and to also get all the things done, to raise awareness into the high level, like Mayor Mancera and Minister Mueller, and to get the budget done. So it's going to be really, it has been a really 18-month experience that I think we can fast track for other cities, and we can share experiences for our colleagues in other cities. So I think that's all for us. Of course, I'm really happy to, I'm really glad as well to get you any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Itzel. Really appreciate that insights and perspective. So next up is Octavio García from ALENER to the private sector perspective. Octavio?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Octavio García. I'm the president of the AEAEE. In English. Okay. I'm going to show you what's the industry or the sector of the energy efficiency thinks about the legislations, rules, policies, and other things. So we are going to start. Mexico, as everyone requires, standards, policies, and legislations focus on energy efficiency. So the industry has participated actively in the development of the standards focused on measurement methodologies, materials, building industry insulations, R values for the housing envelope by thermal zones, thermal envelope in houses and non-residential buildings, measuring tools on ABIS and the construction industry training, development of energy conservation codes for building in Mexico, and we participate in some tables or working places for the law of energy transition. So here in Mexico, we have products, systems, and solutions focused on the thermal envelope of the buildings. So for compliance with standards that we said some minutes ago. It has been shown that with good design, orientation, and thermal envelope, we can achieve saving in energy consumption ranging from 20 to 50%, reducing greenhouse gases emissions to the environmental. Why I said this, I'm going to tell you in some minutes. The different solutions that the industry offers are available at national level. On the other hand, sometimes technical solutions that the industry have except that the norms and codes and policies says. So the technology is more in front of the rules and regulations here in Mexico. Innovations and technology advance faster than the regulations. Therefore, we can mention that the regulations can be excluded and not included. So our stories, success stories. Since 2000, the government, manufacturers of insulation and construction industries have participated actively in various pilot projects that are ALENER acquired by the federal government in reducing greenhouse gases, which has successfully demonstrated that benefit of the application of the concept of energy efficiency and savings you can get. The problem that we saw in Mexico is that these programs don't have continuity, and every 3 to 6 years we have changes in the government, in all the powers, municipal, state, and federal level. So I think, well, I don't think so, but the industry thinks that we have a lot of pilot projects, and then we still making here in Mexico pilot projects that the industry wants, and we are working together with the government and other ONAVIs and other associations, is that we need to work, focus in only one kind of projects that we have continuity. Independently, if we change the government or we have changes in regulations, legislations, and other things, we need that all that we make here in Mexico have continuity. So the real challenge in Mexico is to ensure that the rules focused on energy efficiency in buildings are included in building regulations. We think that if included in the Mexico City could influence a percentage of municipalities that refer to the city, Mexico City. But still, it must perform work at the state and municipal level to ensure the inclusion of these standards rules or codes focused on energy efficiency. Okay? Challenge that we have. If you saw in the table of this slide, in Mexico we have 32 states and 2,445 municipalities. So if we work together here in Mexico to include the rules or the codes in the legislations for building regulations here in Mexico, we think that could be influence a big percentage of municipals that refer Mexico City. Okay? This is the principal work that we think need to do, and on the other hand, we need to make a continuity in the projects. For example, in the COP16, the associations make the first net zero house energy in Cancun, but when the government changed, we started to make another pilot projects to try to make another net zero house energy or reduce, I don't know, for example, in Mexicali, 30% of energy, including the use of the air conditioner or whatever. We have a lot of examples that we make the science 2000 year to 2016. So we think that we have a challenge, very, very big challenge here in Mexico, and I hope we participate with WRE and another, the government and another associations to be successful in these kind of projects. So this is the view that the industry have, and thank you very much for listening to me.
Great. Thank you so much, Octavio. Really appreciate the insights.